to 411 T Street, unfiltered conversations on mental health and the issues in society that impact us all. This is where we break down the barriers and explore the topics that intersect with the challenges of modern society. I'm Dr. Milan Bray, and each week we'll dive into raw, honest discussions on the systemic issues that affect us all. We'll hear from experts, thought leaders, and everyday people offering real stories and actionable insights to help you achieve an understanding of the issues that matter most. No filters, no sugarcoating, just real talk. Welcome to 411 T Street. Today, we have one of those thought leaders, Dr. Coco Wong. She is the founder of CEO Kids International and Kids Do Good movement, and also the global chair of the G100 Leadership and Entrepreneurial Education. Oh my gosh, just a mouthful. All right, so thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you taking your time out today. So
Thank you for inviting me.
You're very welcome. So I'm gonna just jump right in. What's all this kid stuff about?
Okay, so basically, I love connecting kids with the real world,
Mhm.
and how it started was actually from a very sad story because my daughter was bullied when she was 9. So during that time, I was a little bit lost, and I was really angry as well as a mom, quite helpless, not sure what to do. So in the end, I set up an NGO in Hong Kong, where we did anti-bullying in schools. So we actually offer free therapy to children who are victims of bullying. However, the problem I saw then was that a lot of these children actually had very low self-esteem, very low self-worth, even after therapy, because they were
Mhm.
healed from the trauma, but not really the outlook of life or how they are, because they felt they were picked on because they were lacking in something.
Mhm.
And that included my daughter. So I then discovered that when I get her to do business or things that she loved and to share, let her share it in her own way, she actually came out of that um, low self-esteem phase, right? She started to feel, oh, actually, people like my stuff. People endorse me, right? They actually will buy from me. They believe in me. So all that came out. So then I turned that into a program for the NGO. So fast forward, I moved to Malaysia and we hit COVID. And during that time, actually, a lot of parents reached out and say, "What can we do? What can we do?" Even though there was nothing to do with bullying, they were still like, "Okay, what can we do now?" They're all stuck at home, blah blah blah. So then I thought, okay, let's do this program, but do it online. Let's see if it works. And that was sort of how it started. The CEO, the real CEO kids, and then I thought, okay, actually, it really worked, and all these kids were starting to feel, okay, I have a purpose in life because of connecting them with the real world. And then my daughter was the one who said, why don't we just start this as a business in Malaysia since we don't have anything here yet? And I thought, okay, if you are up for being a co-founder, let's do it. So my daughter then 13, she was the co-founder. She was the
Wow.
one who actually led the thing. And subsequently, a lot of the events were initiated and started by her. So I'm like a supporting staff. Um, but she's still in school. So I'm here to like talk about it more and lead it a little bit more. Yeah. So that's how we all started.
So I love these kinds of stories because this is the true essence of how shit grows the most beautiful flowers.
Unfortunately, yes.
I'm gonna be frank. And I think oftentimes humans, children, we all get stuck when things happen, whatever that looks like, whether it's uh, a political decision, whether it's a family loss, whether it's it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what it is. When things happen, oftentimes as humans, and your daughter did this, but adults do this all the time. Like, why me? What about me? What am I? What's wrong with me? I do it, you just have that moment where you're like, wait, what? I thought, and so it's so important that we find ways as humans, especially when we're helping children navigate the very tumultuous terrain of life, to find their passion and their purpose, and to really help them not only do that, but as we talked about, you graciously joined us for the G100 Global Leadership, and we talked about values and volunteerism being the pillars of industry, nation, and cause. And so it's, for me, it's not just about figuring out what your passion and purpose is, but really being grounded and rooted in these fundamental concepts so that whatever we grow, not that weeds don't pop up, but we don't want to be suffocated by the weeds, right? So
Yeah,
and we can easily do that with the tools to eradicate the weeds that lean into, values-driven education, values-driven leadership, values-driven, CEOs, values-driven organizations. I mean, whatever, just values-driven, fill in the blank.
absolutely. I feel that you hit it on the nail because in Finland, when I was working with the Finnish government about with education, they
Mhm.
have something called roots and wings. So roots being like very grounded, right? So when we work with children, we are thinking of growing the roots, so it's very deep. So the values in them is very deep. They're very, very grounded. But we also need to give them wings so that they can fly off anywhere they want and as high as they want, right? And as far as they want. But they always need to be grounded. That's the key, right? They know where to come back to, where to get their center. So I think that is exactly why we're doing what we do. I mean, a lot of people ask me, why do I name it CEO Kids, right? And
Mhm.
are we training all the future startup leaders, etc.? And I often say, actually, no, because CEO, if you think about it, a CEO of a company is responsible for making the right decisions, for moving the company forward for the direction. So CEO Kids actually, what we had in mind was exactly that. We have to have the values so that they can be CEOs of their own lives, to make the right decisions, to be responsible for what they do, and just to contribute to communities, right? So, and that is essentially what a CEO does. You are responsible. So that is what a CEO kid does. They learn all the values, they learn the right mindset, and then lead the world. So that is how I mean, I totally, right? We are
Mhm.
totally in sync with this.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And I think that's so important to think about that. We are the CEOs of our lives. I think we oftentimes forget that because so many things, there's so much static in the world, and there's so many things to distract us and to level us emotionally and physically and spiritually, whether it's what we're looking at on the phone, whether it's something that's happening in our community, whether there's something happening in our country, whether it's something happening in the world. Like, we can always find something wrong. But when we come back to that center space, we're like, I'm in charge of my life. I'm in charge of how I view myself. I'm in charge of the choices that I make. I'm in charge of the yeses or the nos that I give the world. But I think it's sometimes really challenging to all weed through the weeds. It's
It is,
not a good,
it
it's not a
is,
good
it is.
sentence, but but also, even especially for women.
Yes, true. And I think it's because we have been brought up in a sense that we take care of people, right? We put other people first. And being a woman, we are more emotional in a way. So often I have this thing that where I see when an opportunity arises,
Mhm.
women overthink a bit. Are we qualified? Can I do it? Etc. We actually discourage ourselves to take it because we have so many doubts, right? We keep thinking, I'm not good enough. Do I really know that stuff? We need to be like 200% sure we can do it. and
Mhm.
tick all the boxes
Mhm.
before we apply for even go for the job, right? Whereas for men, they could just take three boxes out of 10 and
Mhm.
they're just going, okay, I'm just going to go for it. So there's no
Qualified
right
enough.
or wrong. Yeah. Yeah. So to me, it's not like whether we are ever going to be 100% ready.
Mhm.
But I would like to take this opportunity for women to think about this because life and things change so often, right? And even the qualifications there, the needs for the skills will evolve as well as you take on the job. So you don't need to be 100%, not even
Mhm.
50.
Mhm.
Actually being 30% is okay to go already. So go and learn on the job as it evolves, right? Because who says those 10 are going to be permanent? It probably won't be. And I mean, and so even if you're 100% there and you get the job, you still need to change. You still need to adapt to the new skills that will be required. So why not just take it at the get go, right?
Mhm.
So that's how I see it.
Sure. Yeah, I think absolutely. I think women hold themselves back more than sometimes society. I'm not always, but I know I get in my own way.
Yeah,
So
we all do.
I assume other people do. But there's actually a statistic about that, and I don't remember what the statistic is, but it was something like men will apply for jobs that they're less qualified for like 60% of the time over women, or some crazy disproportionate number where women are just like, unless I tick all the boxes, I don't fit. But I think when we're talking about things, it's that confidence, it's that self-love, it's that thing that says, I'm in charge here, I can do this, I know what I'm capable of. Now it's a little bit sticky these days because we have a lot of AI driven uh, the resumes and the things that we submit are being filtered through AI. And if you don't hit certain keywords and all that kind of stuff, it's not like back in the day where you could walk into a company and go, "Hi, I'm Milan. I'm the best candidate. Let's talk about that." There's a lot of things that are kind of put into play now more than ever. I was even talking to someone in a couple. I don't remember when it was, but we had done a podcast, and her company uses a lot of games and personality profiles and emotional intelligence, all this kind of stuff to help vet the right person. So in that case, it's not even about your qualifications. It's, are you adaptable? So,
And I think, I mean, in my wing, we're talking about leadership and entrepreneurial education, right? So often we're looking at education. And when we say education to people,
mhm.
often they just come up with the schooling time, right?
Mm,
That is in their mind, that is education. And there was a discussion in my wing that being schooled doesn't mean being educated.
100%.
Actually, you can be schooled and never be educated,
100%.
right? Which is a sad truth, right? And education should actually be from 0 to 99, well, or beyond, right? However long you live,
Yeah, well, it
education,
is, but people just don't think about it like that.
yeah, but it is a constant.
Hmm.
So what we are looking at is we're not looking at the qualifications, actually. We're looking, like you said, the adaptability. Because when we adapt, that's when we keep educating ourselves with new skills. Like during MCO, suddenly everyone, MCO, COVID, sorry, MCO is what they call it here. During COVID time, everything was locked down, right? So suddenly everything had to migrate online. So you would see the agility of the companies that could do that quickly versus the ones that couldn't at all.
Hmm.
How how that affected us, right? And that is what I'm thinking of when we think adaptability, agility. Are you open to learning new skills? Are you able to learn new skills even, right? There are people who just cannot learn new skills.
Yeah.
And that's when they hit a problem because when the world is changing so fast with AI, for example,
Hmm.
how are we adapting ourselves or our lives or our businesses or anything around that? And I think that is a crucial skill for children nowadays and for people nowadays
Hmm.
to have because we don't know how fast these challenges are coming because they are coming way faster than ever before in history. And
Mm.
if we don't have that agility, we
Hmm.
die, right? That's, I mean, the cockroaches. I'd like to use that analogy because a lot of people use that, right? Dinosaurs versus cockroach.
Hmm.
Dinosaur, big, strong, powerful, right? Cockroach, tiny, you just step on it and it dies, right? But cockroaches have been around as long as the dinosaurs, but the dinosaurs are now all gone.
Hmm.
Cockroaches are still here. Why? Because they are adaptable. They will find ways to find food. They will find ways to escape. They will find ways, right? And I think, I mean, as much as I hate thinking of myself as a cockroach, um, I still think we need to be like a cockroach, be able to navigate and be able to survive in any conditions.
They can
Yeah.
live 2 weeks without their heads. They're pretty darn durable. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly right.
yeah.
So it's like, how can we be like cockroaches?
Well, yeah, I don't know that I would be much use without my head, but but anyway, no, I think these are really important things to think about. The aim of education should be character, and I think we, at least here in this country, and I know fundamentally in all the other countries too, there's always talk about social emotional learning, character development, values-based driven education, blah, 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 but the thing is that as you said, things are moving faster than they've ever moved before, and we are coming to a new era where I think there's going to be more turmoil throughout the world than we've ever seen before. And you couple that with the stresses of how do I feed my family? How do I get from point A to point B? Um, how do I navigate through, maybe you're in a war-torn country, maybe you're next to a war-torn country, whatever, some sort of environmental disaster. Like we're all one step away from something huge that we're going to have to deal with. It could even be loss of a family member. We're all one step away. But the thing is that with trauma, with the generational trauma, with all the stuff that people already have to deal with, and we keep layering that, education, that fundamental education of math and science and history, that's all really good. But if we don't have the coping skills and the development, those fundamental developed skills of how do I navigate crisis within myself and around me, it's never going to work. And I look at models, you mentioned, Finland, and I look at models like that, and I've talked about this on this podcast so many times. But Finland, New Zealand, to some degree, Canada, they really lean into these models of social emotional learning, and they're crushing it. Their countries are crushing it. Their happiness quotients, their economies, their education, I mean, all of it, they're crushing it, right? And so, and even we saw New Zealand and how they handled COVID, crushed it, nailed it, um, suicide rates. If you look at all of those things, they're doing really, really well. So if we know these things work, why in God's green earth are we doing this loop of insanity where we just keep like we're little hamsters on the wheel, just get off
Probably running the
already.
wrong direction as well, you know? A
True story.
hamster on the wheel running the wrong direction never gets anywhere. If you're running in the wrong direction, you never get anywhere, right?
Well, if you're
And we
running on
are
a wheel, you never get anywhere. You're just running in a circle. So, you know what I mean?
running.
Like good, bad. Yeah. So I see all these things and I really applaud what you're doing with regard to children because the kids that are coming up now are really sensitive. But when I teach my courses and we talk about personality theories and generational personalities, and I ask the kids, the Gen Zs and the Gen Alphas, which, is where your daughter lands as well, what do you think? And they're like, you've basically left us a mess. I'm like, well, I didn't do anything. It was my collective. Um, but you've left us a mess and you've left us without hope. All we hear as kids is we've got till 2050 before the oceans dry up. We've got till tomorrow before climate, disaster. Like they're constantly being bombarded with these negative messages, and it feels very, very overwhelming for them. And I can totally see that, which is even more reason to bring them back to center and to help them understand how to navigate their lives as what you do, being the CEO of their life.
So how I see this is, yes, I've met teenagers who are like, you left us a mess, right? But at the same time, that is quite a negative mindset
True.
that I see them saying that. So fortunately, a lot of the kids that I work with don't have that. Because who is feeding this message to them? Who is feeding that we're leaving this is a mess, right? Because I think in every era or every generation in time, there is some mess somewhere,
True.
right? And and there's always going, it's never going to be a perfect world. So if we keep saying that, oh, now it's a mess or whatever, rather than looking at it as a positive way, so what can we do about it, right? Rather than saying, oh, you left us this, so what do we do? There's nothing we can do about it, which is the negative mindset. Versus if we look at it, it's that yes, we've got this, we've got these resources now. So how do we make the best of these resources? Rather than think, oh my God, it used to be like this. Because what used to be is past. So cannot look back. And like I said, every generation has some sort of history that led to now, right? So for me, it's always looking at now, what do we have that we can make the most of for a better future? So that is how I want my students and actually parents, because nowadays, since I've started working with children, the parenting comes into play, right? Because the parents need to have positive mindset. The parents need to understand. So, I mean, one part of us is entrepreneurship. So we talk about money a lot. And I found actually a lot of parents don't want to talk about money because they think money is a dirty word. Actually, in a lot of religion, rich people are bad people, right? So it's like if you have riches, you need to share it with everyone. So it is in some religion a dirty word. So the mindset of parents facing money, and which brings me back to the point, we are always like, oh, we don't have enough. We have to, what do we do? Even for the living, I can't do it. How can I contribute to the world if I don't have enough for myself? All that, right? But all that is a mindset of lack. Whereas we should be all looking at mindset of abundance, because the nature universe is in abundance. It's just that we feel we're lacking, and that is when we go out and we want to grab things from others, right? Or we feel, oh, I'm so sorry for myself, I'm so bad, right? It's all from a place of lack. But if we feel that actually I'm in abundance all the time, if I give, more will come to me, right? So imagine someone who's like filthy rich, giving some money away, they will still be filthy rich because it's in abundance, right? Yes. So I think we need to come from that angle more, especially with the mindset. I mean, we're addressing mental health and all that, right? But if our mind is always thinking that we are in abundance, we're not fear of not having anything, then I think the mental wellness will come with it, because a lot of the mental stress comes from lack, comes from like, I'm so scared that I'm not going to have any of this. I'm fearful that this is not going to happen. I'm fearful of my health, right? All that, the mental health issue comes from the lacking of ourselves. But if we can switch that around a little bit, it's just, I mean, we've all seen stories of people who are in terminal health conditions, and yet they have such an amazing life, right? Versus those who have way better health and then not living their lives to the full. So why, right? It is, I do believe it is that fear of lack that brings us that stress.
I agree. Well, I agree with you. And I would also add to that, and I've shared this before, all insecurities, fears, anger, any negative emotion we could possibly ever face come down to two words, instability and insecurity. And so that so that security feature goes into lack. I'm not going to have enough. I'm not going to have enough for me. I'm not going to have enough for my family. But I also think, two other points. I think also, depending upon what country you're in and what culture you're in, and what city and state and all that kind of stuff, there's also some extra things that, for example, here in the United States, kids have to go to school and worry about getting shot. You know,
Yeah.
that's that has nothing to do with gratitude. That's just a fundamental basic safety concern. So,
True.
and that's not a funny thing. I'm just, it's like they got a lot on their plates. And that is something that also leads into not having the emotional wherewithal to cope with life stressors. I'm not talking about the children who are afraid for their safety, but I'm talking about the children who are going out and harming other children, whether that's bullying, gun violence, whatever the situation is. That comes from something that they've been traumatized in some way, and then they go out and they need to traumatize somebody else. So we do need to go back to some of those really, really fundamental things. And, and in my work, I always talk about love, truth, peace, right? Conduct and nonviolence. And I whittle those things down to not anything related to romantic love or loving your car or your ice cream or whatever people think they love these days. But I'm talking about compassion and empathy and acceptance and tolerance and those kinds of things. Really leaning into some of those values, but also self-love. We really, as a human, need to kind of slow ourselves as a human race, need to slow ourselves down, because if you look at some of the happiest countries in the world and the happiest people, oftentimes they don't have a lot.
Mm.
They can be very poor, but they have family and connection and the things that are most meaningful. And I think we forget just to have, never mind, I have a roof over my head or whatever. I have a family, and I have a family that cares about me, and I have friends that care about me, and I have connection, and I have support, and I have food, and I have a home. But I think, the kids coming up, and I'm glad to hear that your kids are so much more positive. But I think technology has kind of stripped away some of these foundational components of connection. Of, we have people out in the world who are lonelier now with all their technology than they were before, um, because it's not authentic. We're not, and even you and I were having a great conversation, but wouldn't this be, well, you and I have met in person, but wouldn't it be better if you and I were sitting at that little table having some masala tea? I think that would be so much better. So,
What?
I know you're missing the masala, right? You're like, oh my God,
Yep.
that cute little lady that just kept bringing it. Anyway, I digress. I think I drank my weight in masala when I was in India. Obviously a favorite. So yeah, I think there's a lot that needs to be worked on. And this is something that, when I look at, like, for example, the UN, and I look at programs like UNESCO, UNICEF, these programs that work with children, I think, we're really worried about their foundational needs of food, security, and all those kinds of things, and making sure that they get the vaccinations that they need and the food and the support. But what are we doing to really help their emotions? How are we really helping them mitigate crisis? Because they're not just having all of these other things. Now we're adding post-traumatic stress, we're adding generational trauma, we're adding anxiety. So and someone just recently told me, this is horrible. There was some place in Africa, and I, forgive me because I do not remember the story, but they said 123 girls committed suicide
Mm.
because, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah. Yes, I think that was because they were in fear that they will be sexually abused or something like that.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Like, why are we not stepping in to give the emotional support that these people, any people, need? Girls, boys, men, women, children, anybody. Why are we not there to support the emotional needs as
I
well?
I think there are support around
Yes, there
if,
is.
but at the
But
same time, I just feel that emotional wellness is something that people don't want to talk about still, right?
yeah,
They are
interesting.
they are sort of like, I don't want to seek for help because people are going to think I'm really gaga, right?
Hmm.
And I
And
am going,
think I'm
yeah,
weak. Hmm.
yeah, and weak, right? So, but in my head, it's like it's just like a cough or fever that you get. It's just that these symptoms are different, and you do need help. Do need to find help, and and I understand that because when my daughter was bullied, obviously she was going through a lot of emotional stress, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
as was I. And I did think, how am I going to help her? Do I keep so in my mind it's like keep going to school, right? Otherwise people think you're going crazy. But she was going crazy. And I was very fortunate because I had a psychiatrist friend, child psychiatrist friend that I called up and I said, this is happening. What do I do? And she goes, take her out of school. And I cannot. Exams are coming up, and she's going to miss so much homework. And how long do I take her out for? And then she goes, until she is well enough to go back to school. And I said, how long would that be? So it was,
You're like, I want answers.
but she goes, we don't know because it really depends on her, right? And then she
Yeah.
was like, you better get her therapy. But then the word finding a therapist
Hmm.
already was scary because I was thinking, she would already thinks there's something wrong with her if that was why she was bullied.
Hmm.
Now I'm putting her through a therapist. She's
Hmm.
going to think she's even worse now, right? In my
Hmm.
that was what went through my head as a mother,
Hmm.
right? I wanted to help her. I knew mentally she was not well, but I didn't want to take her to a doctor, a therapist, because I thought that would make her worse. But I was lucky that in the end I did take her to a therapist, and that helped tremendously, and it changed my views on this. And that was why in my NGO, I actually provided free therapy for children
Hmm.
because it is that fear in a lot of us that if we do seek this type of help, people are going to think we are lunatics,
Hmm.
right? And we are crazy people. We don't want to mix with these crazy people because we have seen like what crazy people sometimes do, right? But it's so essential that we know there is help, and even if we offer a lot of help, if people don't go and ask for it, it's not going to do anything. So we need to
Hmm.
educate people that it is okay to ask for help. It is okay
Hmm.
to say that you are not well
Hmm.
here, right?
Hmm.
And not just of your body, because this is part of your body too.
Yeah. I think
So
as women too, we're taught to swallow it. There's a line in a movie and it's it's the movie's Deadpool and he says you and your trauma bragging, why don't you what did he squash it down like the rest of us and turn it into accomplishments or cancer. I was just like, but it's so true. Like our generation, and especially Eastern countries, there's this stigma. There's less of a stigma in the United States about going to therapists. You know, for me to say to you right now, my therapist said, if I said that here in LA, they'd be every single person be like, and my therapist said, you know, like it's
yeah,
it's kind of a weird brag to have a therapist, right? But I know for somebody who's lived in Asian countries for a very long time, even in 2024, going to a therapist, getting yourself on medications, that's not okay. You know, that's done in the, you know, but way behind the scenes. Nobody talks about it. Oftentimes young girls or young men, they don't even tell their parents because they're ashamed. They don't want, you know. And so I think two things, you know, need to happen. One, women need to be okay saying, I don't need to be everything to everybody. But I
yeah,
think they're also, again, we have to lift the veil of the stigma of going out and getting support. But women, especially women, we've got to be so strong. Supergirl, Wonder Woman, Catwoman, I don't know, whatever the superheroes are these days. We don't need to do all that. But it's hard. It's not easy to step away from either what culture defines for you or what society defines for you.
Absolutely. And I think that actually, you know, with all these female empowerment stuff that we are doing
Hmm.
and everyone is talking about, I actually feel men are also in trouble at the moment
Oh,
because
true story.
women are being so powerful sometimes that the men are playing a backseat. So I do feel that have always been told that they need to be strong, you cannot cry.
True.
So all the things that we women feel are happening, I think it's actually harder for men to voice out even
Hmm.
more because
Hmm.
women are more like if we get together,
Hmm.
we we do vent a bit, right? We do
Hmm.
release.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
men, when they get together, they don't talk about emotions, right? They
No,
don't talk
not
about
so
things
much.
that happen. And I think for men, it could be even worse in a way. I mean, I'm not a man, so I
Well,
don't
that's why they
know.
have heart attacks earlier because it just
Yeah,
keeps
yeah, yeah.
stuffing it.
Yeah,
Just,
because we at least if we get together with our close friends, there
mm,
is a way that women tend to offload, right? We
mhm,
share and it's, oh
mhm,
my God, it
mhm,
happened to you too, blah, blah, blah. At least
mhm.
there is some sort of outlet. But when I see men, I feel like they get together, they never talk about this, right? They never talk about emotions. They don't talk about family. They don't, family maybe a little bit, but mostly it's work, sports, everything that is outside, but hardly anything inside. They don't
Yeah,
share that. And I feel that we need to think about them as well.
a
Because,
100%. But we still have the societal stigma that says a woman who has emotion is crazy, and men who have emotion are weak. Like it's 2024.
yes, yes.
Like, can we erase that and rewrite the sentence already? Like, shit's real. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Open up the news. You know, yes, we need to have gratitude, and yes, we are all better off than we probably think we are. There was a quote that somebody's like a quote. It was not what that's not what it was. I was talking to somebody, probably a therapist, and they said, you know, when we talk about all the things that we were that happened to us, right? Um, and uh, and the person said to me, don't remember who it was, but they're like, the question that you should always ask yourself is, are you okay? Not tomorrow, not 5 minutes from now. Are you okay now, in this moment that we're speaking? And the answer is always yes. Now, the answer would probably not be yes if you were a coma or you had your steering wheel sticking through your sternum. But even if you could answer that question, the answer is still yes. So we just holding that space of and this is so Eckhart Tolle, right? You know, just that present moment, just kind of zooming into where we are in this present moment and going, okay, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay right now. I'm okay. Um, but that still does not mitigate all the noise, right? So there's a lot
I
that
love
we have to do to help each
that.
other. Yeah.
I really love that because yes, in that moment, and we can live from moment to moment. And if we are okay each moment, I think it makes it just gives you a different perspective. I like that. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, but it's not easy, right? You know, because we get
Not
distracted.
easy.
And you know, I have the self-diagnosed ADD, so I'm like squirrel. So it's like you've met me. I got a lot going on here. So yeah, so it's not easy. You know, life happens. There's a lot of static, and it doesn't help that we have phones and computers and iPads and social media and a million different people giving us a lot of misinformation about what we're supposed to think and what we're supposed to believe and what we're supposed to do. And you know, the best thing that we can do is just disconnect from all of it and just be authentically ourselves, be the CEO of our own lives.
Yes. Yes, I do believe that's the core. When we are in charge of ourselves, when we're in charge of something, you feel that empowerment, right? And you feel that I'm in control. I know what's going on.
Mhm.
And that's what gives you that stability and security at the same time when you know you've got this. So I feel that it is very important that we learn how to do this. even with all the distractions, all the craziness around us, it is essential we get grounded and we understand that we do have control.
Absolutely. And I would take away, I would erase the word control because it connotates something that is not really something that exists because we never really have control. But what we can have is inner peace.
Mm.
And when we have that center, that the Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, that center, that core, that space, no matter what happens, the wind could be blowing over the branches of our tree. There could be chaos around us. And we're still sitting there going, I'm okay. I'm good. You know? So helping us figure out not only how to move forward with that authentic purpose that we all have. We all have a journey and we all have a purpose, but also to understand that true the essence of control is really about that inner peace, that unwavering inner peace. And I know you've met people, a girl breaks a fingernail and she's done for the day, right? She's
Yep.
like, oh my God, I broke a nail. I'm like, ah. And there are people that could be, their house could be burning down and they could be like, well, there's a shopping opportunity. It's like,
Yep.
it's all perspective, right? It's all
It
perspective.
is. It is. And to
So,
learning to see that side of things actually helps calm out, like you said, the inner peace. When
mm.
we know how to shift that, like, oh my God, to, oh, good, or something.
Yeah, I
And not,
actually
oh, good, but
I didn't get that shopping opportunity line myself. I was at it was like a non-denominational church out in Missouri, like 100 years ago, a long time ago. And they had asked I guess it was a minister. I get confused. Minister, pastor, I get confused with all this. Anyway, the guy up there talking, and they asked him, you know, is because he was talking about control and self-control and inner peace and all that stuff. And they literally asked him, well, if your house burned down, you would be devastated. You'd lost everything. And he'd be like, or I could go shopping opportunity. He was gay. So there was a whole voice behind it. It was very cute. But yeah, so it is all about perspective and I love that. But I love
easier said than done. But I
yeah,
believe
easier
that
said than done. Easier said
we
than done.
can slowly move towards that.
Slowly move towards that. But I think, the message of all of this is that in all that we've talked about, that it really we have to help our youth along. This is a very, very tumultuous time in history. We've all had tumultuous, as you've said, we all have had something that we've come up against. But I can tell you, I would prefer to have come up in my time era than with what kids are dealing with now. And
Absolutely.
it's going to take more moral fortitude and emotional strength and resilience and all of that stuff. So the more that we can support them in and getting there and not so focused on, if they can do calculus, let's focus on their mental health, because I think if we can get them there and we can support them, help them understand what their purpose is, help them understand what it means to have control over their own lives, to be the CEO of their own lives, and 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 sit all of that on the foundation of values, love, truth, peace, right conduct, and nonviolence. I think I think we will all be very, very surprised with our future. If we don't do that, I think we will be all very, very surprised about our future. So, it goes
Good
both.
surprise or bad surprise is our choice.
Exactly. I didn't want to be negative. I didn't want to end things on a negative. So there we are. So to wrap everything up, share a little bit about how people can find you, what you're offering for people. Yeah, your final pitch.
I didn't prepare for this. You can find me on LinkedIn, Coco Wong, Dr. Coco Wong. You can find me there. And my pitch. Okay, so I do a lot of, I'm looking for more people around the world to come on this mission of helping children to find themselves.
I'm in.
So, yes, I know. I know you're in. So, do reach out and see what we can do together, because I do believe that the more people we have on board, the easier it is to move this. And we need you. Yep. So that's my
Yeah,
pitch.
true story. So I'll share all your details in the links below so that everybody can find you when we share this message. So I super, super appreciate you joining me
Thank you.
today and sharing all this wisdom. Thank you for tuning into 411 T Street, where we spill the tea on the stories that matter the most. Transformation isn't a single moment. It's the clarity and insight that drives meaningful change and connects us all. If today's episode struck a chord, hit subscribe and share. Let's keep these conversations flowing and inspire real movements. 411 T Street. Get the info, spill the truth, spark the change.